Alright guys, we finally made it to the end of our Reishi antler grow. So I wanted to show you guys how I pick these Reishi antlers, and I want to weigh everything up, and I'll give you guys an idea of what you can expect if you do this kind of grow in terms of biological efficiency and what the final yield will be. I could have grown them a little taller if I wanted to, if I would have kept giving them humidity. These white tips, basically that means they're still growing. So these aren't maxed out, but they're getting there, and I have some other grows I want to get started, so I'm going to go ahead and pick them off. So we started with 8 blocks. I picked one off already. We have 7 here still to pick, and so I want to give you guys, we'll get an idea of, once I pick all these off, how much yield you can expect to get if you do 8 blocks with these Reishi antlers using our pasteurized fuel pellet recipe. So what I like to use to pick these is a good sharp pair of pruners like I have right here, and I'll just go through and just cut them off like that. And so I'm gonna run through all these blocks, we'll pick them off and see what kind of weight we get. Alright, so I'm lucky enough today to have a lovely camera assistant, so I don't have to film this myself. But I did have to bring in the serrated knife for a couple clusters just to kind of dig in there a little bit. But mostly use the pruners, and you can see we did get them all picked off, and we're gonna weigh them in right now. Alright, it wasn't easy, but we got them all in there, and we got 4 pounds 10 ounces. But I know this tub weighs about 10-12 ounces. I didn't tear that out, so say about 4 pounds total yield off of 8 blocks, so about half a pound a block if you follow this recipe, which isn't bad. These don't have a real high moisture content, so you're not going to lose a ton when you dehydrate them. But I'm going to give these guys a rinse, and then I'm going to put them in the dehydrator at around 100 degrees, let them run for a while until they're totally dried out, and then they'll be ready to use for your tea or tincture or whatever you want to do. Alright, I just pulled everything out of the dehydrators, and I have everything crammed into this bucket and a bag on top here, but we pretty much have it all in here. You can see we ended up with about 2 pounds of finished product, so we lost about 50% moisture content in the dehydration process. I ran these about 24 hours at about 100 degrees. So we got pretty good yield out of this grow. Typically about 8 ounces of dried mushrooms will make you about a gallon of tincture. So that's a lot of tincture there out of one pretty easy grow. Now you would get a little better yield if you grew conchs instead of antlers, but the antlers are just a little easier to grow, and typically they're not as bitter if you're making medicinal extractions out of them, because with antlers you really don't have a hymenophore surface or a spore producing surface like you do with the conchs, and that's typically where a lot of the bitterness comes from. So we're gonna keep packaging these up and store them in the fridge or the freezer wherever we have room, and get on to our next grow.